Hello everyone, my name is Andrew for Aurora Gameworks and welcome to this short 7-part tutorial series on creating all the basics for your new space shooter game in Unreal Engine. So this first video is going to be setting up the camera and creating a player blueprint and setting up the basic controls for that player blueprint. You can see in the background in our current viewport window, I have a moving grid on the ground. This I have brought over from a different project of mine. It'll just help give us a bit of a background. You can have your background be whatever you want it to be, but if you would like me in a different video to explain how I made this, just comment down below, and if there's enough demand, I will make a video for that. But anyways, the first thing that we want to do is just go into a new empty level with starter content and remove the skybox and the sky atmosphere. So before we do anything, I'm going to resolve our current brightness situation, because without the skybox with its natural lighting from that, the post-processing's auto exposure kicks in, and the scene then becomes very bright. So the first thing that we're going to do is click on exposure compensation. Let's set that to 0, and then on min and max brightness and speed up and speed down. So let's tick all these. Max brightness can actually stay at 8, but min brightness, we're going to change that to 0.15. Speed up, I'm going to change to 5, and speed down, we're going to change to 4. These are the values that I've found to work best in this space shooter environment. So with that done, we're going to now start creating our first blueprints. The first one that we're going to do is make our character. Let's call him Player BP for blueprint, and we need to give him a controller. So another blueprint class, player controller, just simply player controller BP. And we'll also need a game mode. So game mode base, click that. Let's just call that game mode BP. Make sure we save that. Now inside our level's world settings, we want to make sure that we're actually using this game mode BP. So come to our list. There it is, game mode BP. And inside of game mode BP, we want to change our defaults here. Our player controller class is going to be the one that we just made, and our default pawn class is going to be player BP. Compile and save that. Now we want to work on getting a camera into our level. But before we do that, let's just do a quick thing inside our player blueprint. We want to create a new variable called cam actor, and we want to set the variable type to be camera actor object reference. And this is because we're going to have the camera placed in the level scene, and we want to be able to have the camera to communicate back and forth with the player when we want to, for any reason. So with that done, we can go ahead and place our camera in the level. So if we have our player start location all zeroed out, some good values that I've found for placing the camera would be to have it 5,000 units up, and we'd have it centralized, and we'll put it about 2,350 units back behind, and then we can have the camera pointing down onto our scene on a 45-degree angle. Though you can set up the camera perspective to be whatever you like. You can have it perfectly facing straight down, or you can have it on a more shallow angle, whatever you like. So now that our camera is in position, there's one very important thing that we have to do, and that is go into selected camera, go to auto player activation, and we want to make sure that we have it set to player 0. Now this system here starts at number 0, so player 0 here is actually player 1, or the only player if it's a single player game. And now to set the cam actor variable that we made inside the player BP, to pass that information on, we're going to make sure that we have our camera actor in the level selected. Go to blueprints, open level blueprint, and we want to right click, create a reference to camera actor, and now we want to get our player. So let's go cast to player BP. I always like setting these to pure casts, and on object we can get player character. From there we will set our cam actor, hook it up to event begin play, and then we'll just connect it up like that. So now the cam actor variable inside our player blueprint is joined up with the camera that's in the level. So we have all the camera stuff set up for now. What we now need to do is make sure that our player can move. First thing that we're going to do, go into our player blueprint again. Now we have our character movement component, which is always there if you set up a character class blueprint. So I've tweaked around with all these settings here for a bit to give it a sort of space shooter sort of feel. And these are the best values that I've been able to come up with. So for max acceleration, I like to times the default value by 4. So that's 8,192. The braking friction factor, we're going to set this to a very low value, so 0.05. Max walk and max walk crouch speed, I like to just set to 2048 on both of them. So now we go down into the jumping falling category, and we want to set our braking deceleration falling value to also 2048. And we want to have full air control because we're a spaceship. And the falling lateral friction, I found 8 to be a good value. With like all these values, you can tweak them as much as you want to get the perfect feeling that you want. These are just a good set of baseline values that I found. So now we scroll down even more, and we want to go to planar movement. We want to constraint to a plane, and that plane will be the Z plane for up and down, because we don't want a spaceship to be just falling as if it was gravity on a planet. So we want to have our plane constraint normal, we want our Z to be 1, and we want the plane constraint axis setting to be Z. So now with our character movement component stuff all sorted out, make sure that you have compiled and saved, and click save all here just to be safe. Now we want to set up all of our inputs inside the project settings. To get there, just click on the settings up here, project settings, and on the left there will be input. We want to make 3 action maps for now and 2 axis maps. So 1, 2, 3 action maps. Our first one will be for the fire button, which I will bind to the left mouse button. Secondary fire, which I'll just set to the right mouse button. And we'll just have a pause key for now, which we can work on later. And on axis mappings, we want up and right for our character movement, or a ship movement, I should say. And we want 2 buttons for each of these. The W key for up, so the scale is 1. And the S key for down, so that's -1, the reverse of up. And for right, we want the D key, so that's scale of 1. And then for left, we want A, so that'll be -1. So now we can go into our player blueprint and we can set up all the code for our input controls. So want to right click, we want input up, so that's an access events up, and input right, and we'll get our access events right. From there we will have an add movement input, and we want them on each of these. And make sure to plug in your axis values into scale value. Now for the world direction, we want to get our control rotation. Now we want to break from here because we only need the Z yaw value for this. Roll and pitch can be zeroed out, so we'll make a rotator so that they're all 0 and we're only just getting our yaw information. And we want to get a get forward vector, which will go into our input axis up world direction. And we'll get a a get right vector, which we'll put into world direction for input axis right. And we will compile and save that. So we got all of our input controls set up. And before we go any further, you might want to set up the model for your ship if you have already made one. If you haven't already made one, you could just use a sort of default cube as just debug to have in place for now. But preferably the default character stuff would like a skeletal mesh, so keep that in mind. What I'm going to do is borrow the ship that I have from my current sort of space shooter, like proper game project that I'm working on, a game called Echo Rift. And if you would like to see a quick preview gameplay of that, stick around at the end of the video. So cool, we have a ship that we can now control. If I go play an editor, you can see now we're moving around quite nicely. But one thing that is an issue is that we don't have any bounds. So we can technically just go anywhere. The camera will never follow us. And yeah, we don't want this. We want to constrain the player to the sort of bottom half of the screen and make sure that they don't go off the screen to the left or the right. So what we do for this is we go into our volumes and we get a blocking volume. So with this here, since our player start location is all zeroed out, we want to have our blocking volume all zeroed out as well, all relative to where the player starting area is. And if we scroll down, we'll have our brush shape. So a good set of values that I found is to have our X value at 1200, so that's a little bit of forward and back movement. Y value to be 5000, which will go kind of close to the edge of the screens, but not super, not like overlapping the edge of the screen. And then for Z, it doesn't matter too much for Z, but I just keep it at 2000 for safety, just to be safe. And we want to have hollow ticked true because we want to have our ship exist inside this space and we want to be hitting the inner walls. If that wasn't ticked and the blocking volume wasn't hollow, on spawn we would immediately be pushed out of this cube and it would be a space that we could never go into. So now with that, if I hit play and we move around, you see now that our ship is constrained to the sort of bottom third of the screen, and we can go left and right. Actually, the value for Y being set to 5,000 for its width, you could probably set that a little bit higher. You might be able to get away with 7 or 8,000 if you really want it to be at the edge of the screens. But yeah, that's pretty much the first part of this short tutorial series on making a space shooter game. Today we just set up the camera placement and the controls. So a good baseline. In the next video, we're going to be setting up all of the variables that we're going to be needing going ahead inside the player blueprint. So that's all the variables for things like health, all the variables required for firing weapons from our ship, and more. So if you're interested and you're not subscribed yet, please make sure to subscribe to keep in touch with us, and you'll be able to see that video as it comes out. I've been Andrew for Aurora Gameworks. Now, check out this little sneak peek at our work in progress on Echo Rift.